Hello, hello. Welcome to the 360 Method, a weekly podcast where we talk about everything Autism 360. Each week, we're going to be catching you up with what's going on in the program, chatting with team members, and talking all things mindset whilst exploring relevant ideas to autism parenting. I'm your host, Ella Bailey. I'm an Autism 360 veteran coach, explorer of all things parenting autism. Each week, I'm lucky enough to be joined by my co-host, Renae Tate, who is our mindset coach extraordinaire. Hello, Renae.
Hi, Ella. Hello, everyone. How are you today? Hope everyone's having a great day and dealing well with whatever is happening for you right now.
Yeah, we are onwards and upwards, right, Renae? We are just coping with back to school in a whole bunch of different ways, aren't we?
Yes, it's a great topic today. I think, as you said, school anxiety, it is very topical at the moment and something that maybe a lot of our parents are dealing with in different ways, on different levels. So looking forward to discussing that with you today, Ella.
Yes, and as always, to you, our lovely listeners, welcome. We care about your thoughts, your experiences, and your feedback about the program. So please do drop us a line at hello@autism360.com. We would love to hear from you. Before we get started, I would just like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land from which this podcast is being broadcast today, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay respect to their elders past, present, and emerging. I wanted to also say that this podcast is not designed to substitute for medical or allied health advice. If you are concerned about your kiddo, if you are, want more information, need more specific advice, please do get in contact with your medical or allied health professional. So, word of the week, Renae. Our word of the week is school anxiety. What are your kind of big picture thoughts about school anxiety from a mindset perspective?
Look, I think, it's interesting because it's something that I have one of my elder daughter who has had anxiety in the past. And it was interesting that we had this come up. She's going into year 11, or she's just gone into year 11. So it was, coming up again. And I think it's normal for all kids to feel a bit anxious after the holidays, going back to school. It's like, haven't seen my friends for a while. What's changed? What teachers do I have? It's a bit like that. I think sometimes, just getting back into work or school, whatever, we've been away from for a while. So that's quite normal, obviously. But some kids obviously do struggle with that more than others. And, one of the things that, I discussed with my daughter, which was really good, and I was able to help her draw upon her own resources. And I think that's the key, right? It's like empowering them to be able to draw on their own resources, because we can't be there to fix everything for them all the time. And as much as it's hard for parents to let their children go if they're feeling anxious, they do need to learn these skills. And obviously we need to be empathetic as well, but really just give them the tools to empower them as much as we can, which is something that we do a lot on the Autism 360 program. As you know, is about empowering the parents, but in this case it's very much about empowering the children. So one of the things that I talked to my daughter about is I said, look, you felt like this when you went to kindergarten. You felt like this when you went to year 7.
Yeah.
You felt like this when you started your first job, when you started driving. And, that awareness of her going, I have felt like this many times in the past, but guess what? I overcame it each time, and it got easier and it got better. And really quickly, I just saw the penny drop for her, where she was able to look back and go, yeah, actually, I have had this, but you know what? I was able to overcome it. And very quickly, I think that those examples for her was enough for her to realize that I've got this, I can do this, you know. So I think that's a really good one. Like if your child has had this in the past, maybe before when they were younger, starting school, or at a different time, just giving them that reminder that, you know what, you felt like this back then, but you were able to overcome that. And, you know, that was a really easier one for me this year than what it has been in the past, because she was able to draw on her own resources and examples that she'd had in the past. So that would be my first tip, is look at some examples you can give them of where they have overcome that before.
That is such a cool experience that you got to talk with her about the kind of growth that she's had in the past and use that almost as evidence to kind of bolster her self-belief. Like, look, you did these things and you can also do this thing. And like, I love that.
Yeah, and it was almost like I just saw it, the light bulb go on for her, where it was like, oh, you can't argue with that, you know, like once you look at that and go, yeah, actually I have done this, and then there was nowhere to go from there. The anxiety just sort of dissipated, and she realized that, yep, you know, I can do this. So that self-belief and confidence, drawing upon that, it really did help.
How cool. I think that kind of growth mindset idea of that, yeah, you're right, there might be hard things, there could be things that you need to overcome, but look at all these awesome examples of things that you've overcome in the past, and kind of highlighting that, not highlighting the, you know, the outcome necessarily, but highlighting that it was hard initially, but you still tried, and that, you know, you can repeat the success just by giving it a really good go. I love that idea.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. It's like, you know, what we feed grows. So if we're sort of getting a bit caught up in their anxiety and we're getting anxious, that's obviously not going to help them. So I think just staying calm, you know, getting them to draw on their own resources, whichever ones they can be. So that's obviously a good one. Another one that I would suggest is helping them to breathe, you know, just to be able to go, you know what, let's just do a little bit of breathing just to help them calm themselves down, and be able to draw upon some tools that they can use during the day, or, you know, at any time where they're starting to feel that that's building up. And another, you know, part to that breathing is something I call our personal sanctuary, which is about setting up a place like your happy place where you're able to go to at any time that you may be needing that. So that's really a lovely one that we can all use, and maybe that's the beach for them, maybe it's a special place where they just feel really happy, might be a park or a garden or something like that. So just to be able to help them visualize and step into that lovely place where they do feel calm and happy, that's a good one that they could be using throughout the day if they just need to go and settle themselves down, and one, obviously, another resource that they can use as well.
Absolutely. It's kind of adding to their tool belt of strategies that they can tap into when they're feeling dysregulated or anxious. Again, during the day, that they can do without you, building up their independence. So cool.
Yes, absolutely. And kids are so, you know, good at imagining and escaping and things like that. So I think having something like that that they can go to is a really lovely one that they can learn to soothe themselves at different times as well. I think sometimes, like when we try and fight the anxiety, that can sometimes make it worse. So I often say to people as well, just identify what is the emotion. Oh, okay, I'm feeling a bit anxious right now. Okay, what's that about? And just actually talk to yourself through that. You know, it's like once we put our finger on the emotion and identify it, it sort of starts to lose a bit of its power, rather than, oh, I'm feeling anxious, and you almost become anxious about feeling anxious, and that can just really start to grow, and you're having this little fight within yourself. So, you know, being able to identify, okay, I'm feeling like this, what's that about? Okay, well, that's fair enough. You know, it's all a bit new at the moment, and just talk yourself through that that, as I said, it really starts to lose its power, and you'll find that you'll be able to move through that emotion a lot faster. So that's another one that is a good thing to practice for all of us, but particularly one that we can help our children with as well.
Absolutely. And I think certainly with the, bringing a little bit of that kind of psychological science into it, when we know that, a certain physiological sign means that we're anxious, we are getting sweaty palms, or we're, panting or something like that. It's almost a signal to us that there therefore is something to worry about. It's kind of this cyclical feedback loop of, oh, okay, my body's telling me I'm stressed, therefore I'm stressed about being stressed because my body's telling me to be stressed now. And that, that's just not helpful for anybody. And kind of breaking that circuit seems like what you're not only talking about parents being able to do, but also talking about kiddos being able to do at school by using that kind of personal sanctuary strategy. Is that right?
Absolutely. That is one strategy. And as I said, also just by identifying the emotion, putting our finger on it and just saying, okay, I'm feeling like that right now. What's that about? Just talking to yourself logically and, okay, it's all a bit new, but, I'm going to be able to get through this. That really just helps that emotion not have so much power and charge. And, I think that's the problem. Like you said, you start getting stressed about being stressed or anxious about being anxious. And, it's just finding those different ways. We're all different. So, see what works for your child, but having some things that you can do to be able to bring yourself back down really helps. And the more that they know that they can do that, the more they go, oh, okay, I know I've got some strategies and tools that I can use, which actually helps us feel calmer. When we have a solution, that really helps us go, well, I know what I can do if I start to feel like that.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And it's interesting, when I was thinking about Word of the Week and kind of our top 3 tips relating to school anxiety, almost, and I know it's a parenting podcast kind of thing, but my tips are all like not really about the school, not really about anything solid that we need to be doing. It's more about our own anxiety management, our own, engaging with our own thought processes that might be holding us back in terms of supporting our kids at school. So I think we're very much on the same wavelength there, Renae.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, making sure that there's nothing big going on at school, like, looking at the environmental factors, which obviously we would suggest as well, making sure they're not being bullied or there's something specific at the school and that they have got support. But you're right, often these emotions are very much internal and they're not logical, there's sometimes no real reason for them to be feeling like that, but they just get a little bit overcome with that emotion and anxiety. And it's about having those strategies and really empowering them to be able to address that. And I think once we get that confidence, that belief system, as we discussed earlier, that's where we start to go, oh, I've got this, I know I can do this, yes, I've had this before, but I was able to overcome that through whatever technique or tool worked for us in the past. And as I said, what we feed grows. So I wouldn't be giving it more energy and attention than it needs. Sometimes when people say to me, my anxiety, my depression, and I say to them, take out the my, don't own it, because then it's almost like it's a part of you, it's attached to you. It's not your anxiety, it's the anxiety. Even things like that, just remove it from you. You're not stuck with it forever. Maybe you don't have that solution right now, but it doesn't mean that there's not ways to be able to overcome that.
Absolutely. And some of the I guess tips that I have around managing school anxiety is, I guess, coming to terms with what it is that we're actually worried about. So a lot of the time when we really boil down, anxieties or things that we're worried about, all those kinds of things, there's so much about what we make those things mean about ourselves or about our kids, or what we think that our kiddo is going to make those things mean about themselves. And that's a process that we can interrupt. You know, like, we don't have to make those things mean those things about ourselves, you know? So, for example, I'm worried that my kid is going to go to school, be disruptive, get in trouble, and then everybody is going to think that I'm a bad parent, you know? That process isn't a given. Like, let's look at that. And give ourselves a break from carrying that around. You know, it doesn't have to be like that. Let's engage with the process. So I guess sorry, you go.
Yep, sorry, keep going.
No, you go.
Well, just to add to that, I think that's a really good point, because I think the problem is that the parents do feel quite helpless with these types of things. And you know, it doesn't mean, like you said, there's nothing wrong with your parenting. You know, I think the worst thing as a parent is to feel helpless. Like, I can't, you know, I don't know how to help my child with this. But just because, as I said, you know, you don't have the strategy just now doesn't mean that it's not something that can be overcome. And one of the things I love about the program is that all of a sudden, you know, parents are finding strategies that they hadn't thought of when they're working with us on the program. And all of a sudden it's like, wow, my child is toileting, or my child's now doing this or that, and I just didn't know that, you know, that it could happen that fast. And you know, it's just about right now, maybe you don't have that strategy or that solution, but please just, you know, keep focusing on what's the solution rather than getting stuck in the problem. So yeah, I think that's a really good tip, Ella. It's not about whether we're great parents, because you wouldn't be here listening if you weren't. It's just that, you know, it's one of those things that we have to help our children learn over time, and there is always a way.
Absolutely. And I guess my 3 kind of word of the week tips are based around that. It's kind of solutions oriented, and these are things that I talk to, you know, my parents on the program about all the time. And my first big tip is to think about school in terms of a relationship, in terms of the relationship between your kiddo and learning, between your kid and their teachers. Focus on the relationships at school, because the relationships are what drags everything else along. So the learning is kind of a byproduct of the relationship that your kiddo has with their teacher, for the most part, primarily. And so I always encourage parents, you know, don't worry so much about I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example. Don't worry so much about your NAPLAN preparation. Don't worry so much about, you know, do I go Montessori? Do I go Steiner? Do I go mainstream? Think about which teacher, which person, which adult is going to be there investing in my child, and how can I foster that relationship? Primarily, that is my number one tip in terms of managing, you know, school anxiety for ourselves, managing school anxiety for our kids. Think of it as a relationship that you build, rather than, you know, a process that you are being forced to engage with, sort of thing, because because your kid has to go to school. So that's my first tip in terms of being solutions oriented. It's a relationship that you build, not a test score that you get, not a place that you have to go. My second one would be think of school as an experience that you shape for your child. So, and right or wrong, you know, often parents get the impression that school is something that your child has to fit into, that your child needs to, in order to be successful, needs to completely be able to kind of do everything that the school requires, you know, fit in all the molds that the school has set up. And I would encourage parents to dig a little deeper into that concept, engage with that critically, and think, okay, well, why? How can I shape the school experience to be a way, in a way that supports my child, in a way that works for us, that helps my kiddo to learn. You know, if that's the ultimate goal, think of school as something that you can shape for your kiddo. And I just want to spruik really quickly that our fabulous senior coach, Kim, does amazing work with parents in her one-to-one education sessions on the program, just talking about like, okay, well, like, how can we change our parental kind of thoughts about school, which might have been shaped by a whole bunch of our experiences at school, into something that is more helpful for shaping school into something that works for your kid. You know, does your kiddo need more support in the classroom? That's okay. You know, school is there for your kid, not the other way around. And I also just find that parents come away from sessions with Kim totally thinking in a different way about school, that they could actually kind of advocate for what their kiddo needs, and that the school can come to the party on that. And so many schools are happy to do that in whatever way they can, but we need to think of it as a thing that we can do, which lots of parents, you know, need to be taught about that. So that's definitely my second tip.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's a good point that you make as well about, you know, the pressure that sometimes, you know, we do put on our children in terms of different things. Also, I just want to mention that because I think we all want our children to do well at school and get the best grades and all of that. But I think perhaps, you know, looking at, am I putting a little bit too much pressure on them? And that could be another thing to just look at with that as well, and just make sure that there's no added pressure that is causing that anxiety, because when they're happy at school and they're enjoying it, they're obviously going to be, you know, learning better and enjoying it more anyway.
Absolutely. And it's funny, that is my third that's my third tip. It's just like, lower the stakes. Stop like putting the pressure on yourself and on your kid. Specifically because school is a marathon, not a sprint. It goes for, in Australia at least, 12 years minimum, potentially. You know, thinking about, okay, well, I've got a lot of this to go. Can I, and do I want to, sustain this pressure that I'm putting on myself, putting on my kiddo, or can I let a little bit of that go to enable us to kind of be in it for the long haul together? You know, it's I think it's so easy when you're, I don't know, in the kind of stressful high needs stages of parenting to feel like, oh my goodness, if I don't, for example, get this homework done today in, you know, 100% completion, that, you know, your kiddo's schooling is going down the drain. And I just cannot stress how much that is not the case. Your kiddo's schooling will be absolutely fine. And don't hear me saying that you shouldn't put effort into supporting your kiddo or whatever, but I guess, you know, keeping a North Star in terms of a happy, healthy, engaged kiddo at school is more important than, you know, your kindergarten homework getting done on a Thursday night, even though everybody's, I don't know, crying, for example.
Yes. Yeah, it's so true, Ella. That's a great point. And I think sometimes us parents put so much pressure on ourselves, even like to get everything right and perfect. And then obviously, you know, we sometimes are putting that on our children without necessarily meaning to. And so I think that's a really important tip. Like, maybe take the pressure off yourself a bit and also off your child, just so that they're happier in general with school.
Absolutely. So I guess they're going to be our main tips. Did you have anything else to add, Renae?
Just one last one. You did mention before about thoughts, you know, these are thoughts, and, you know, this is something just to follow on from identifying the emotion. Okay, you know, I'm feeling a bit anxious. Just also just being aware that our thoughts is what creates our feelings. And, you know, our thoughts, even though sometimes we feel like we've got no control over them, they are just thoughts, and thoughts can be changed. So rather than sort of having a bit of a fight with yourself over your thoughts, if they start to run away and and get into that negative spiral. One of the things that I often encourage the parents on the program to use is have an empowering affirmation, something that you can say to yourself over and over again if you ever need to just calm down or feel better instantly. And it's good to have one that you can just draw upon at any time. So one that may be nice for your child is to just have something like, I'm feeling calmer and calmer every day, or I'm feeling stronger and stronger every day. I'm feeling more and more confident every day. Now that's one that is just a nice one that you can keep saying over and over again. Pick what feels good to you, but it's one that the more that you're saying it, it gives you a positive thought to come back to instantly. And the more you say it, the more that starts to become you're reprogramming you for feeling more and more that way. So it instantly makes you feel better, but it actually has long-term success through the power of affirmations. So that's just a good one that maybe you want to set up with your child, one that they can say to themselves. And once they plant that new seed and start watering that seed of I'm feeling better and better every day, or whatever it is, they will be amazed at how that starts to actually become their new reality. That's how powerful our thoughts are, and reprogramming ourselves at that deeper level.
I love that idea. And I remember we chatted a little bit about affirmations last year on one of our Facebook lives and how powerful that was for people. I think that's such a good suggestion, Renae. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Ella. And I'm sure there's been some great tips today. I think, that really hope that helps our parents out there just to have some good tools to be able to use and draw upon at the moment and in the future as well.
Yep, absolutely. So thank you to our lovely listeners for tuning in today. As I said before, please, get in touch. We love to hear from you. Drop us a line at hello@autism360.com. We will chat with you next week. And until then, think 360. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.